Dissertations are quite a daunting task. Hi, I'm Dr. Sri Banerjee, core faculty for the College of Health Sciences and Public Policy in Walden University. And in this segment, I wanted to go over the structure of Chapter 4 of the dissertation. And if we take a look here, you start with the introduction. And in the introduction, you provide a preview of the organization of Chapter 4 and then briefly review the purpose, research questions, and hypotheses. And you might be wondering how you can fit that all in one paragraph, since the introduction is not very lengthy. And so this is a very brief overview, not intended to go into any detail about the research questions, just the ideas that you're using, a brief synopsis of that. Now, if you're conducting a pilot study for a primary data collection, then you would be using this. However, most of you will be or have used secondary data. So let's move on from this. Data collection. What was the time frame for data collection? So I'll give you an example. In my dissertation, I used National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey between the years of 1999 and 2010. So I had to state this on my dissertation. And the years were important because this showed the reader precisely where I was getting the data set from. So also, if there's any discrepancies, you want to talk about them. What are the descriptive and demographic characteristics? That's important. And then describe how representative the sample is of the population. So the one that I mentioned, that's a National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey, or another one that a lot of students use is National Health Interview Survey, and then more and more students are starting to use All of Us research. So the first two data set that I mentioned is nationally representative. You have to be kind of sure about some of the other data sets. So provide any sort of univariate analysis, and not just the variable of interest, and go into the confounders and other things. So that's Chapter 4 mainly, and then the treatment and or intervention fidelity. This is more for randomized controlled trials or more of primary data, where there's clinical trials involved. So as I said, report those descriptive statistics, and then go through some of the assumptions. This doesn't need to be very detailed. For instance, in logistic regression, you need to have two categories, and the dependent variable or outcome variable. And then you want to check for some other assumptions. And then you report the statistical analysis findings. And when I talk about statistical analysis, here we're talking about mainly multiple or multivariate logistic regression, or linear regression. Now, in public health research, you're using more of logistic regression. Honestly, it is more. It is easier to interpret a binary logistic outcome regression rather than linear regression or other types of statistical tests. So moving onward, looking at the statistical analyses findings, you can use exact statistics. Now, this is typically recommended for lower sample sizes, and of course, when you have so there's a dual meaning here. What I was telling you about is the exact statistics test. However, this is talking about the statistics and like odds ratio and associate probability values. Now, with every odds ratio, there's also a 95% confidence interval. It is always important to provide a kind of an odds ratio and 95% confidence interval. And then sometimes post hoc analyses are important. However, we don't do post hoc analyses. Report any additional statistic tests of hypotheses that emerge from the analysis of main hypotheses. So any incidental findings, that's what they say, that may have emerged, you can include that within your chapter 4, and of course including tables and figures and in APA style, and in the output in many of the output in SPSS, you can actually automatically convert into APA style tables. So then at the end, this is quite basic. You go into summarizing answers to research questions and provide transitional material from the findings and introduce the reader to the prescriptive material in Chapter 5. So you start with the summary, you end with the summary, and in between you provide your findings, some of the univariate distributions, and then you go in and conduct your multivariate analysis. And so that sums up everything that you have to complete. I hope this makes sense. Thank you for listening.